All right, everyone get ready because today we are going deep into the world of service accounts.
Service accounts.
Yeah, you might be thinking service accounts, that sounds kind of boring. But honestly, these things are like everywhere online, working behind the scenes.
Right.
And if you get them, you can really boost your security smarts.
Absolutely.
We've got a ton of sources for this episode, articles, videos, and even some stuff from a cybersecurity pro.
Oh, wow.
It's like we've got our own little detective squad here.
That's a great way to put it. It's interesting because a lot of people don't even realize service accounts even exist.
Right.
But they're super important for how the internet works. They're like the invisible workforce that keep everything running.
Okay, so before we go too far, let's back up a second.
Sure.
What exactly is a service account? Can you give me like a picture of what it is?
Okay, so imagine a regular user account, but instead of a person logging in, it's designed for applications or like automated processes.
Okay.
So think of it like a robot worker with specific jobs to do in the digital world.
So when my email sends itself at like a scheduled time, or a website backs up its data, is that a service account?
Yeah, exactly.
What are you saying?
One of our sources uses that exact example.
Okay.
Automation. It's all about automating things.
That makes sense, but why are these service accounts so important? And what makes them risky? Is it just because they're automated?
It's more about the access that they have. They often need what are called elevated privileges to do their jobs. You could think of it like keys to different parts of a building.
Okay.
A janitor might have a key to a few rooms, but a service account often has like a master key because it needs to access a ton of different systems.
Okay, so a lot more power in those digital hands.
Exactly.
I'm starting to see where the risks comes in now.
That's right. One of our sources really emphasizes that if those privileges aren't managed very carefully, things can go very wrong.
So it's not about them being automated, it's about them having access to sensitive things.
Right.
So what happens if a service account gets hacked or misconfigured?
Well, that's when you start to see data breaches and those security incidents.
Oh no.
Do you remember the data breach at Company X?
Yeah.
Investigators trace that back to a misconfigured service account.
Really?
These accounts really hold the keys to the kingdom, so managing them is crucial for preventing disasters.
That's a scary thought. So we've got these robot workers with master keys everywhere online.
Right.
What are some real-world examples of service accounts? Where might I run into them in my everyday life?
Oh, you run into them everywhere?
Really?
Cloud services like Azure AD and Office 365, which millions of people use every day, rely on service accounts.
Wow.
It's amazing to think about what's happening behind the scenes thanks to these accounts.
It's really mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I'm getting a bit nervous thinking about all this potential risk.
Right.
What can I do to protect myself? Are there any practical takeaways here?
The good news is a lot of the best practices for protecting service accounts are the same ones we should all be using
Okay.
for our online accounts.
Okay, well, let's hear them.
Okay, so the absolute foundation is strong, unique passwords for every single account.
For every single account?
Yeah, it might seem obvious, but it's shocking how many people still use the same weak password everywhere.
Yeah, I'll admit I've been guilty of that in the past. But
Well-
why is it so important to have a unique password for every account, especially if I already have a strong one?
Our source talks about how interconnected our digital lives are these days.
Okay.
Think about it. Your email account's probably linked to your social media, online shopping, maybe even financial accounts.
Right.
If someone gets into your email because you reused a password, they've got access to everything.
So it's like using the same key for your house, your car, and your office.
Exactly. Not a good idea.
Okay, so unique, strong passwords.
Top of the list.
Top of the list. What else can we do?
Whenever you can, turn on two-factor authentication or 2FA.
Okay, 2FA. I hear that all the time, but remind me why it's important.
Okay, so think of it like a secret handshake that changes every 30 seconds or so. Even if someone steals your password, they won't know the secret handshake, which in this case is like a code sent to your phone
Okay.
or generated by an app, and they can't get in.
So even if someone gets my password, 2FA makes it much harder to actually get into my account.
Exactly, and it's one of the most effective ways to protect yourself.
Okay, strong, unique passwords and enabling 2FA whenever possible. Got it. What else?
Be wary of phishing emails.
Okay.
Always double check the sender's address. Hover over links before clicking them,
Right.
and never download attachments from someone you don't recognize.
Good advice. It's like that saying, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah, exactly.
Always trust your gut.
Yeah,
If something feels off, it probably is.
you got it.
Okay, strong passwords, 2FA, And phishing awareness, that's a good start. Is there anything else we should be doing?
Absolutely. Always make sure your software and devices are updated
Okay.
with the latest security patches.
Okay.
A lot of times those updates include fixes for vulnerabilities that hackers could use.
So it's like making sure the walls of your digital house are nice and secure, no cracks for the bad guys.
That's a great way to put it.
All right, so we've talked about the basics of securing our accounts.
Right.
But what about those service accounts with their elevated privileges? How are those kept safe?
That's a great question.
Because companies definitely don't want to end up like Company X.
You're right. And speaking of experts, there's one person who might be able to shed some light on that for us. When it comes to managing those service accounts, we're talking about privileged access management,
Privileged access management.
or PAM for short.
PAM? Okay.
And one expert comes to mind who might be able to help us out here. Bert Blevins.
Bert Blevins.
Yeah.
Okay, you piqued my interest. Tell me more about this guy.
He's a cybersecurity expert who specializes in PAM, and he has this great YouTube channel where he breaks down all sorts of complex security topics.
So before we dive into YouTube, let's back up.
Okay.
What is PAM exactly?
PAM is basically the control center for all those master keys that we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
The elevated privileges that service accounts and other critical accounts within an organization have.
Okay.
It's all about controlling and monitoring who has access to those accounts to make sure that only the right people get to the important stuff.
So it's like a security guard for the security guard?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
It's
brilliant.
super important for service accounts because, like we said, they often have those higher levels of access that we need to keep an eye on.
Okay, so PAM is like a high-tech security system for all those master keys. Tell me more about this Bert Blevins and his YouTube channel. What kind of things does he talk about?
Well, one of his video titles that really caught my eye was Cloud Security Threats You Never Knew Existed.
Oh, that sounds scary.
He dives into all these things that most people don't even realize are risks.
Like what?
Well, for example, he talks about something called cloud identity enumeration.
Cloud identity enumeration.
Uh-huh.
Okay, break that down for me. What is that and why should I care?
Okay, imagine someone's breaking into a building, but in this case, it's a company's cloud system.
Okay.
And they're going like room to room, figuring out what's there and what they can get access to.
Uh-oh.
That's essentially what cloud identity enumeration is. They're trying to map out all the cloud services, like Azure AD and Office 365.
So they're like doing reconnaissance?
Exactly. They're looking for those weak points before they launch a full-blown attack.
That's scary, like leaving a blueprint of your house just out in the open.
Exactly. And the scary part is, a lot of companies don't even realize it's happening until it's too late.
So what can companies do to protect themselves from this? Are they just sitting ducks?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Bert talks about how important it is to have strong access controls and to follow that principle of least privilege.
Right, we talked about that earlier.
Exactly, making sure that only authorized users and services have access to the data they actually need to do their jobs.
So it's like having security clearance.
Yeah, like top secret files.
Okay.
And Bert also really emphasizes regular security audits and monitoring.
So it's like having a security camera system for your cloud.
Exactly, always watching for any signs of trouble. By actually looking for that suspicious activity, you can catch those attacks early on.
Okay. Strong access controls, regular audits, constant monitoring.
You got it.
Got it. Any other insights from Bert?
Another one that stood out to me was his video on Oath OTP MFA.
Oath, OTP, MFA, okay?
Remember we talked about two-factor authentication earlier?
Yeah, like a secret handshake.
Exactly. So Oath OTP is a really secure method of 2FA.
Okay, so what makes it so special? Is it like an extra secret handshake?
You could say that.
Okay.
Instead of getting a code from a text or an email, which can be intercepted, Oath OTP uses an app on your phone or a hardware token
Right?
to generate a code that's only good for a short amount of time, usually like 30 seconds.
So the code's constantly changing. So
Yes.
even if someone steals my phone, they can't use it because the code expires so fast.
You got it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and what's really neat about Bert's videos is that he walks you through how to set it all up,
Step by step.
step by step.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I love it when experts don't just talk about the problem, but actually offer solutions.
Right, solutions that everyone can use. This Bert Blevins guy really knows his stuff.
He really does. He's clearly really passionate about cybersecurity. And he has this knack for explaining these complex concepts in a way that anyone can understand.
It seems like Bert isn't just talking to other experts.
Right.
He wants to make sure everyone understands cybersecurity and can protect themselves.
And he does it in an entertaining way. He's got a good sense of humor, which is refreshing when you're talking about cybersecurity.
Yeah, sometimes these topics can feel so heavy and overwhelming.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's found a way to make it engaging without downplaying the seriousness of it all.
He's really good at striking that balance between informing and entertaining.
Yeah.
And, one thing I really like that he keeps emphasizing is the human element of cybersecurity.
Okay.
He talks about how even the most sophisticated security systems can be totally useless if the people using them aren't careful.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like having a state-of-the-art alarm system, but leaving the front door unlocked.
Exactly. What's the point?
Right.
Okay.
He gives some really practical tips for avoiding those common pitfalls, like creating strong passwords, being aware of those phishing scams, and keeping your software up to date.
Things we've all heard before, but sometimes need to hear again.
Yeah, exactly.
It's easy to get complacent
Right.
and think it'll never happen to me.
Exactly.
So Bert reminds us that we all need to stay vigilant.
Absolutely. And he also talks about the importance of collaborating and sharing information within the community.
Yeah.
He actually features other experts in his videos pretty often.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that. It really shows that cybersecurity is a team effort.
We're all in this together.
We have to work together to stay ahead of those bad guys.
That's right.
And Bert is a huge advocate for privileged access management, or PM, like we were discussing earlier.
Right, let's talk about that a little more.
Yeah.
It's all about managing those master keys. But what does that look like in practice? What do PAM solutions actually do?
So Bert explains that PAM solutions usually have features like password vaulting, session recording, and access control policies.
Password vaulting, that sounds interesting.
It's essentially like a secure central place to store and manage those super important passwords for those privileged accounts.
Okay.
So instead of having those passwords written on sticky notes or saved in a spreadsheet,
Which is a huge security risk.
huge risk, yeah.
Yeah.
They're all locked away in this digital vault that's protected by strong encryption and multi-factor authentication.
So it's like a high security bank vault for passwords.
Yeah, a great way to put it.
Okay.
And then there's session recording.
Okay.
So this allows security teams to actually monitor what's happening, track the activity of anyone who has access to those accounts.
So like a surveillance camera for sensitive systems?
Exactly. It provides that accountability,
Okay.
and it helps deter any malicious activity because those users know their actions are being recorded.
Oh, that makes sense.
And lastly, PAM solutions typically have those access control policies,
Okay.
which are basically rules that say who has access to what and under what conditions.
So like specific guidelines for how those master keys can be used.
Exactly. PAM is all about taking a multi-layered approach to security, combining technology, people, and processes.
So it's not just about the tech itself, it's also about creating a culture of security within the organization,
Yeah,
where everyone understands how important it is to protect sensitive
you
information.
got it. And Bert emphasizes that point a lot.
Okay,
He says technology can only do so much. It's up to us humans to use it wisely.
that makes sense. All right, so we've learned about PAM, cloud identity enumeration, OTP, MFA, and some other practical tips.
Right.
It's been quite a deep dive into
It's-
the world of Bert Blevins.
Yeah, he really is a wealth of knowledge.
He is.
And you know what I find really impressive? He doesn't just focus on the technical stuff. He also talks about the human side of cybersecurity and how important it is to educate users and make sure they're aware of the risks.
That is so important. We can have all the fancy security systems in the world,
Right.
but they're not going to do much good if people don't know how to use them.
Exactly. And Bert does a fantastic job of empowering people to take control of their own security.
Yeah.
He gives advice that anyone can use, no matter their technical expertise.
I love that approach. It's not about scaring people, it's about giving them the knowledge and tools to protect themselves.
Exactly.
Welcome back for the final part of our deep dive.
The final part?
We've covered so much, from those service accounts to
Yeah.
the importance of PAM.
Right.
We've even gotten some expert tips from Bert Blevins himself.
He's great.
He is. I'm ready to put all this knowledge into action.
Oh, okay.
What can I actually do to make my online accounts more secure?
Well, we've already talked about some of the key things, like having strong, unique passwords for each account, enabling 2FA whenever possible, and watching out for those phishing attempts. Those are all crucial.
Okay, those are good reminders. But is there anything else I should be thinking about? It just feels like there's so much to protect these days.
Yeah, you're right. It can be a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
One of our sources actually talks about all the different types of accounts people have,
Okay.
like email, social media, financial, online shopping, cloud storage, even work accounts, and they all need to be protected a little differently.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's break those down one by one.
Okay,
Let's start with email. That always
Okay.
seems like it's the most targeted.
it is. Your email account is kind of like the central hub for your online identity. It's often linked to all sorts of other accounts.
Right.
So if someone gets into your email, they can get into a lot more than just your inbox.
So, super important to protect it.
Absolutely.
What are the most important things I can do?
Okay, so those strong passwords and 2FA we talked about, those are non-negotiables.
Okay.
And always be careful about those phishing emails.
Right, phishing.
The ones that try to trick you into clicking a bad link
Okay.
or downloading something you shouldn't.
Any tips for spotting them?
Always double check who the sender is, even if it looks like it's from someone you know.
Okay.
Hover over any links to see where they really go before you click them.
Right.
And if anything just feels off, contact the sender directly, just to be sure.
Okay, so trust my instincts.
Yeah,
Okay, good. What about social media?
social media.
I feel like I'm always sharing stuff on there.
Right, so be mindful of what you're posting
Okay.
and who can actually see it.
Right.
Think about whether you really want to share certain things publicly. And take a look at the privacy settings on your accounts.
Okay.
You might be surprised how much control you have over what you're sharing.
Yeah, I usually just click through those.
A lot of people do.
Okay, what about financial accounts?
Those are definitely super important to protect.
They feel really vulnerable.
Yeah, so those strong passwords and 2FA, again, those are key. But I would also set up alerts. So, right away if anything unusual happens.
Okay.
And check your statements regularly.
Right.
And report any weird transactions to your bank or credit card company right away.
So be proactive.
Absolutely.
Okay, what about online shopping? I do a lot of online shopping.
Online shopping. So many people do these days.
Yeah, it's so convenient.
It is.
But how do I stay safe?
Stick to websites that you know are reputable.
Okay.
And make sure they use that HTTPS encryption.
Okay.
You can usually tell if they're using it because there's that little padlock icon next to the web address.
Right.
And be super careful about putting your payment info on any site that looks suspicious at all.
So it's kind of like choosing a well-lit, busy street over a dark alley when I'm out shopping.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense. Okay, what about cloud storage?
Cloud storage.
I use that for all my photos and important files.
Right. So again, those strong passwords and 2FA.
Okay.
But you can also go a step further by actually encrypting sensitive files before you upload them. That way, even if someone gets into your account, they can't read those files.
So like putting my valuables in a safe before storing them in a warehouse?
Exactly. Extra protection.
Okay, last one, work accounts.
Work accounts, super important.
Any advice there?
Absolutely. Make sure you're following your company's security policies. They're
Yep.
there for a reason. Use strong, unique passwords that are different from the ones you use for personal stuff.
Okay.
And be extra careful about those phishing attempts that come through your work email.
So be professional and stay security conscious.
You got it.
Okay, wow, we've covered a lot.
We have.
This has really been an eye-opener.
I'm glad to hear that. And just remember, cybersecurity is a journey,
A journey.
not a destination. The bad guys are always coming up with new tricks.
Right.
So stay informed, stay vigilant, and keep learning.
You've given us so much to think about
Of course.
and a ton of practical steps we can all take.
Glad I could help.
Thank you so much for joining us.
It was my pleasure.
And remember, if anyone out there has questions, there are so many resources available.
Right, online and within the cybersecurity community.
Absolutely. We're all in this together.
We are.
Okay, that wraps up our deep dive into service accounts and online security.
A deep dive it was.
We hope you all enjoyed it and learned a lot. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.
Stay safe out there.